Başlıyorum. Dear participants, welcome, and it's great to see lots of friends in the audience. Today, first of all, I would like to start my words by thanking Turkish Ministry for, and it is a long name, so excuse me for mentioning it. But thank you very much for the Turkish Ministry to giving us this opportunity to organize this panel, this TÜSİAD and Chapter Zero's panel here in the pavilion. Today, you have been here for long. I mean, already half the COP has passed. And in that first half, I have heard in many panels, many people politely or sometimes very directly complaining about talking too much, but not talking about getting the actions. So I talked with the dear speakers and I requested that maybe we make this a little bit more of a panel on the challenges and how we get over those challenges, and then we talk more specifically on specifics of the climate change. And one thing that's important here is that according to IPCC, in the next 7-8 years, 43 percentage points of carbon emissions will be decreased. That's incredible. I mean, the amount we are talking means an incredible change in the corporate world, in the way that we are doing business. And here I would like to give the first word to Hakan Bey. He is the CEO of Tekfen. Tekfen is a very prominent, as many of you know, a very prominent player and in the hotbed of climate change with fertilizers, construction, and agricultural practices. So Hakan Bey, how do you deal with this hotbed and this transition?
Thank you for the question. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's a privilege for me to address to this esteemed assembly on behalf of Tekfen Holding. Tekfen Holding was established in Turkey over 7 decades ago, having its core operations spanning construction, agriculture, and other fields of operation. We have a significant presence in infrastructure building, production facilities building, fertilizer manufacturing, as well as agriculture. Our contribution to those industries are determined by our commitment to quality, sustainability, and innovation. One thing that I would like to underline while starting is a truth. Humanity, in essence, has profoundly contaminated the earth for decades. Industrial progress has come at a cost that is to our planet in terms of disruption of our ecosystems, rising global temperatures, and an uncertain future for the next generations to come. We do recognize 2 approaches to this problem, tackling of this crisis. The first solution is what we call an indirect approach. This is the approach while we attempt to reverse the harm already inflicted, restoring balance through sustainability efforts and mitigating emissions. The second approach we do undertake is more of a proactive approach, where we are going beyond mitigation by reimagining the industries from the ground up, which means this is including adapting transformative technologies like green hydrogen projects to embed sustainability at every stage of our daily lives. As we operate in industries with high carbon impacts, as mentioned by Cevdet Bey, we recognize responsibility to align our business practices with global climate goals. This is why we are not only striving to grow, and innovate, but also to lead the way with sustainable practices to reduce emissions and support resilient ecosystems. My favorite in terms of our fight with decarbonization is actually agriculture and fertilizer manufacturing. So I will be more focusing to our efforts over there. Everybody would probably know that agriculture itself comprises 22% of global greenhouse gases. This is primarily composed of methane emissions from livestock, carbon dioxide from land usage changes, and nitrous oxide from soil management practices. Despite the environmental challenges, agriculture is crucial for the continuation of life on this earth. Sustainable agriculture supports food security, improves livelihoods, and protects our planet's resources. This makes agriculture a priority area in our daily lives. To mitigate the agricultural emissions, we are supporting farmers by implementing sustainable farming practices to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions while making their farming practices. The challenges in fertilizer manufacturing is as equally significant. Fertilizer production itself involves heavy usage of fossil fuels and it's very energy intensive. Fertilizer manufacturing globally comprises of 1.5% of total greenhouse gas emissions. And more than that, while farmers are using fertilizers on their farms, fields, a gas called nitrous oxide is emitted, and this gas is 300 times more dangerous in terms of warming the environment when compared with carbon dioxide. So fertilizer manufacturing combined with the usage of fertilizer on the field comprises 5% of global greenhouse gases. Yet, fertilizers are essential to increase agricultural yields and ensuring a food security for the growing population of the globe. To address this challenge, what we are doing? First, we are advancing resource efficient production methods, developing precision application techniques to minimize the emissions across fertilizer life cycle while enhancing productivity. Using nutrient stewardship practices, this is called 4R practices in the industry, using the right amount of fertilizer at the right time, at the right place and with the right amount. Using extensive research and development techniques to develop new fertilizers which come up with less and less greenhouse gas emissions, like fertilizers with inhibitors, and using special techniques to increase what we call the nutrient usage efficiency. You cannot improve what you don't measure. This is something that I believe from the bottom of my heart. This is why we have adopted science-based targets and has taken out a carbon dioxide or greenhouse gas emission map of our all operations. After that, we came out with ambitious goals in which we plan to be carbon neutral for scope 1 and 2 emissions by 2030 and to become net zero, including scope 3 emissions by 2045. Here the importance of the breakdown of the emissions in terms of the scopes come into place. For our case, we are consolidating under scope 1 direct emissions from our own operations. This is only 14% of the total emissions for our case. And here is more straightforward, implementing energy efficient production techniques, investment for new machinery. This is probably the easiest part. Scope 2 emissions are only 1% in our case. This is direct electricity purchased from outside. The big challenge indeed is with Scope 3 emissions. Those are the emissions that are emitted across the value chain, whether through raw materials purchased or while our fertilizers are being used in the field. Here the solution is a little bit more deep. It does require collaboration with suppliers for sustainable sourcing methods. It does require supporting the farmers in terms of training, education, with precision agriculture practices. Scope 3, I will a little bit be more talking about Scope 3 emissions, because I believe the success of the world lies under the success of Scope 3 emissions. This is the most complex, most deep, most effort requiring area. What we are doing over there, we are educating and empowering farmers to adopt sustainable practices, supporting precision agriculture, soil health management, sustainable crop practices, developing fertilizers that come out with less and less greenhouse gas emissions. And I think it's wise to comment that the battle against emissions will not be won in factories, but it will rather be won at the fields for agriculture. Those are examples of more of a indirect approach to fight with the decarbonization. Another approach could be a direct approach, a proactive approach, where the design already from the beginning is totally carbon safe. Here, by making use of our experiences from construction, from engineering strengths, and the strength that comes from the ecosystem, that we are having also a fertilizer company in our ecosystem. We are developing two green hydrogen and green ammonia plants in Turkey, inside one of our fertilizer plants. And here the game plan is first putting up these green hydrogen and ammonia plants into use for our own purposes, then leveraging this experience gained for the other industries that might be in search of this green hydrogen and ammonia, and in a way helping the oil and gas industry to transform in terms of decarbonizing. What we have learned through the efforts so far, first of all, collaboration multiplies the impact. Partnering with governments, NGOs, and industry leaders, we amplify efforts to access innovative solutions, and we are more than happy and open to collaborate with whoever would be willing to collaborate. Second, data drives action. You can't improve what you can't measure. With science-based targets, we track progress and refine our goals for meaningful results. Then AI and digitalization also plays an important role in two fields. One is in production. AI and predictive analytics optimize our energy usage, minimize waste, and enhance our efficiencies. Second, also in agriculture, digital sensors coupled with AI platforms enable precision agriculture, applying fertilizers only where needed, only with the amounts needed, and only when needed, because for fertilizers it's important not only to apply it in the right amounts, but also to apply them in the right time. Last but not least, this is not only our understanding, but also I would like to call it a call for action. We believe that climate finance is not a charity, it's an investment for future, it's an investment for sustainability. We believe that climate action is not optional, it's imperative. Finally, we also believe that true sustainability requires a mindset change. A sustainable future depends on rethinking all of our businesses, growth models, and our role in the environment. By fostering a culture that prioritizes long-term impact over short-term impact gains, we will not be only driving innovation, but also making meaningful contributions for a sustainable future.
Thank you very much. Hakan Bey, if I may, you said that the fight will be won in the fields. So there is a fight, and it will be won in the fields, and fields are owned by the farmers. So a farmer wants to buy a normal fertilizer and a green fertilizer, and the cost, the farmer looks to the economics of it. And that cost aspect, how does that evolve, and how would that be of advantage of the farmer in the long run?
This is the billion-dollar question. This is still a matter of discussions, not only in the government bodies, NGOs, but as well, I'm also a member in International Fertilizer Association over there. This is where a shared contribution of the governments together with the industries required. At the end of the day, we have been so far growing with the existence of the farmers, and we know that for the future to come, we need those farmers, we need agriculture. So there's a investment that is not optional. There's again an investment that is not like a charity, that is imperative. And over there, this cost would be partly shared by the governments and partly shared by the industry. And as the industry evolves, because it's a matter of volume, as the volumes and the usage of green fertilizers develop, the industry, the technology will develop, and we will see the cost becoming more neutral, but especially in the short term, a medium to heavy subsidy is required.
Thank you very much. And you also mentioned that that collaboration, that subsidies is more towards the end customer, and thus a market will be developed. That's what I understand.
Actually, there are different models around the world. For example, India is directly subsidizing the distribution chain, but fixing the price. There are other models like Turkey is adopting. In Turkey, we have this end-user ID system, and the farmers are having their ID cards. They are like credit cards, and government incentives are directly being transmitted to their account. So either of the model can be adopted. Important is to be able to go forward with the incentive.
Thank you very much. That was very, very illuminating, actually. And from here, let me shift to the technology side of the subject. And in the technology side of the subject, we have Mehmet Bey from Schneider Electric. And when we whispered before beginning the talk, Mehmet Bey told me that more of this technology's challenges, electrification's challenges, will be his center of talk. And looking forward to listen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cevdet Bey. So, good morning, everyone. It's a true honor for me to be here today with you and discuss a topic that is not only urgent, but truly fundamental to our existence and future, right? So, pleasure to be here. So, as you said, Mr. Cevdet, I don't want to bore the audience with technological details, but just give a highlight. And there is a certain irony about technology and a profound dilemma, which is it was technology at the first place who brought us here with the industrialization, right? And yet today we rely on the very same technology to save us. But hopefully this time I believe we use it more wisely. So it is a very complex subject, and there are a lot of discussions around. And if I just would like to simplify it, I would like to start with the question, what? So what is it that we need to do? And after thinking, I realized it's actually two main things that we need to do. The first thing is really substituting non-environment friendly resources with environment friendly ones. The other thing is we need to do more with less resources. So that's what we call efficiency, right? So basically, having this definition, I would say fighting climate change is really the relationship of humankind with resources. So how do we manage and source our resources? The next question is, it's a very large topic. We just heard very nice examples from agriculture, and there are many areas where we need to proceed. But when I look, where do we need to do this? The second question, we see that most of the emissions are around energy, how we produce energy, and more importantly, how we use energy. So, and this is why energy transition today is such a big topic, right? And roughly, I mean, the numbers vary all the time, but roughly 78% of the emissions are energy related. So this is why also I'm going to focus a little more on energy transition, if I may. So the second big part is really agriculture. Sustainable agriculture represents roughly 19% of the global emissions, and we have heard very nice examples. And last but not least, how we manage waste, how we recycle it, how we reuse it, also represents 3% of the global emissions. So before I go into deep into the challenges, I would like to start with a problem statement. I mean, there are certain challenges, but these challenges are rising from one big problem. And the problem, because climate change in the energy transition is really about having more and more electrification, especially in processes that are today running with fossil fuel. So electrification is really the big topic, and the problem is the needed installed capacity as it is today is not enough. So this is why all of this energy transition is triggering a huge amount of investment with it. Just to imagine, I looked at the numbers. The total installed capacity in Turkey today is 113 gigawatt. The projection of the Ministry of Energy for the next 10 years is to reach 190 gigawatt. Now I was curious and I looked up the first power plant. I mean, that there was a small, let's say, prototype, but the real first sizable power plant in Turkey has been built in 1914. That is 110 years ago. And now we are about to double the capacity over the next 10 years. So we're going to do the same amount of capacity in 10 years what we did in 110 years. So that's, I think, the problem statement we're in front of us. And as you said, this brings a lot of challenges. And honestly, the way I see it, the challenges are not necessarily linked to technology, because the technology is already there. Some of them applied already in various industries. Some of them quite new, like hydrogen, etc., but scaling up as we talk and so on. So the challenges are more on the other side. It's really about huge investment. And I think that's really a big question. I mean, today, how are we investing in in our businesses that doesn't necessarily bring incremental business? I mean, this is in contradiction with the idea of investment. I mean, we do invest so far in businesses to gain incremental business, but today we're about to invest just to sustain our businesses. And how to manage this in today's financial mechanism, I think that's a problem. I mean, we're all professionals and we're all measured, success is measured in quarterly terms, do you do your financials or not? But how to drive these investments, I think, is a big challenge. A second challenge that I see, I mean, if we double our capacity over the next 10 years, that brings a huge complexity with it. So how to manage all these additional renewable resources, how to manage these decentralized resources, how to manage the network in an efficient way, that is a challenge more on the technological side. And then I think the third challenge is really about human capital. Do we have the skilled people, the trained people that are not only implementing these technologies, but more importantly, developing them? Because it's not finished yet. So I think that's also an area where we really need to collectively work together to build this human capital that we have today, but most probably throughout the race it's not going to be enough. And then again, we're going to do in 10 years what we have done in the last 110 years. So is the supply chain ready? Do we have enough minerals and materials and resources to actually build these things? That is also another challenge. And the last challenge I was thinking about, I mean, I said it in the beginning, some of these technologies are already there, but some of them are not at a mature level yet, and they are not scaled yet, such as, I would say, carbon capture technologies or such as green hydrogen technologies. So that's a continuous race to build on these, I would say. Now, again, technology is the sole enabler and accelerator in this transition, whether it be energy transition or green transition. So what are the technologies? Again, it's about, first, the substitution of these resources. There we see a lot of renewable generation, solar, wind, hydro, etc. More and more we see battery storage systems so that we can actually manage more efficiently these renewable resources. We see hydrogen rising up, especially for electrification in the heavy industries, because heavy industries, they require a lot of power. It's very different from I would say, discrete manufacturing. And today with solar and wind, it's just not enough. There, hydro plays a crucial role. Hydrogen technologies play a crucial role. And then what we also see on this side is smart grid technologies, digital grid, how to manage this whole complexity. On the efficiency side, on the efficiency side, clearly, I mean, we all know it, IoT, big data is really opening up huge opportunities for efficiency, whether it be process efficiency or operational efficiency. AI is unlocking many opportunities where we as humans or standard automation technologies are just not enough to make the decisions. And again, digital twins also help us to generate more and more efficiency in our processes and how we drive them. So,
Mehmet Bey, thank you very much for bringing us a framework. Now, let me be a little bit of challenging here, if that's okay for you. Tell us something that we really don't know about Schneider Electrics. Yeah, yesterday, we had Elif Hanım here from Deloitte, and she was telling us something that incredibly and very interestingly matches with what you say about doubling the capacity. She also said that while we are doubling the capacity, we are also decreasing the average size of power generation by 1/10. I mean, from 300 megawatts an average power generation, if my notes are correct. She said that we're gonna manufacture, we're gonna build up power plants that are 30 megawatt sizes. So give us some good news about how Schneider
brings a novel technology or a novel business model in this change, and that teach us something that we really don't know.
No, thank you. So I think Elif Hanım is right. With the energy transition, what actually happens is we do produce more and more renewable energy, right? Whether it be solar, whether it be wind, etc. And in the past, the traditional energy manufacturing was centralized. So you would actually have a big coal power plant or thermal power plant, produce electricity by burning them, and then you would transmit it throughout the whole country and then distribute it. Today, you have decentralized resources all over the country, and yes, compared to a standard power plant, it is much more smaller in terms of capacity. But the beauty is you don't have to transmit it anymore. You produce it where you need it. And this is what we call decentralization in the...
How does that reflect to Schneider's business model? I mean, where is Schneider in this business?
I mean, coming back to Schneider, I think we're a global energy management and automation company. So we are in the whole value chain of designing this from scratch, building it, and then maintaining it. And I mean, coming back to the grid specific, we are building all this equipment that is required there, but more importantly, we also have the all necessary software to integrate all these renewable resources into the grid. Because I mean, there are some complexities when it is about renewable. I mean, you can have only solar power when you have the sun, but you need the energy in a continuous way, especially in the industries. So there are some complexities around, and we have the technology and software to manage these complexities.
Particularly on digitalization, I understand you have.
Yes, that is correct.
So let's come from industry to energy generation and the challenges over there to the from this corporate sphere. Let's move a little bit towards finance, and more important than finance, to the justice of this. There are incredible social angles of that transformation. And what is EBRD doing, Barbara, there in Turkey?
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here today, and thank you very much for the invitation. So at EBRD, maybe briefly about EBRD, we are a private sector investment bank, but with a public mandate. We invest in about 40 countries, including Turkey, of course, and working primarily with the private sector in order to support a development of a sustainable market economy. So when we look at the energy transition in particular, and when we look at the just transition, we actually work with our clients to look at the human capital element that we just mentioned. Because very clearly, if we want to achieve an effective green economy, we need to have the people there who have the right skills and abilities to understand, develop and understand the kind of technologies that we need, and to then deploy them across a variety of different sectors, from agribusiness to energy to infrastructure to pretty much every single sector that we have. So the private sector as employers, but also as providers of goods and services, can play a huge role in supporting that human capital related energy or green economy transition. So as EBRD, we actually work very closely with our clients directly in order to build their capacity to understand what kind of skills do they need, how do they invest in the workforce that they have, what are the partners that they need, from education providers to policymakers, in order to effectively make that transition. And also, how can they structure products and services, green products and services, in a way that actually appeals to the market. Because in the end, if we don't bring people along, and if we don't create the opportunities and the jobs and the positive future for people, we will not have the political, the social, the economic mandate to make all the big changes that are required in terms of how we live, how we do business, how we operate, how we educate people, how we conduct ourselves as a society that are so essential for this green economy transition. So bringing people along is one of the preconditions really of achieving a sustainable market and sustainable green transition. And as an investor, we play a big role. Our clients play big roles, but also, of course, policymakers play big roles. So it's about bringing all these different partners together. So let me tell you a little bit how we do that. We, in a way, use this catalyzing function and this bridging function that EBRD as an investor can play. So we have developed something called the Just Transition Initiative, which brings together investments on the green side with our capacity to also invest in human capital. And then thirdly, very importantly, a focus on regional economic diversification. Because it's not just about individual investments, it's also about supporting regions and people in terms of this labor market transition that is so important. Transitioning from, for example, fossil fuel related industry into renewables. Let me give you two examples in this context. In Egypt, we're working on something called NUAFI, which is the nexus of food, energy, water, where EBRD is actually leading on the energy side, decommissioning 5 gigawatt worth of gas-fired power plants and commissioning 10 gigawatt worth of renewables. So it's that investment side that is really important. But in addition, we also work with our clients in terms of looking at what happens to those workers that will lose their jobs, what happens to the stranded skills of these workers. How can we look and understand what kind of skills will be needed in the labor market beyond energy in the future? We're using, for example, one of our partners is using AI technologies to really better understand and forecast what kind of skills will be needed, and how can we work with our clients but also with policymakers and other partners in order to not just forecast those skills but also train people and link them into the labor market of the future. So that is really important. Another example is, somebody's clearly celebrating there, but another example is in North Macedonia, where we have developed a country-level platform bringing together us as investors, but also other multilateral development banks, the European Commission, with policymakers, and importantly also bringing the ministries for education, ministries for labor into that planning process and into shaping the policies and the measures that are needed, and then to target investments that actually support not just the decommissioning, say, of coal in the case of North Macedonia, but also the investments into new technologies, into new segments, including SMEs, including finance, for example, in this sector. So very important that we, in a way, bring together the ecosystem from investors, private sector, public sector, policymakers, in order to really make that change. Maybe just a final example in Turkey. Of course, we are working very closely with Enerji, which is one of our key clients and has been for many, many years, where we have piloted for the first time something called a green gender equality and climate action, a GECA accelerator, because it's about human capital, but in this context it's also about all the human capital that humanity has, which means men and women. And with Energisa, we have jointly invested in training, skills, vocational education, and also attracting women in particular into the renewable sector, into green jobs, giving them the green skills that they need in order to jointly make that green economy transition. Thank you.
Particularly for your last example, I was in Kahramanmaraş and I saw that project's real on-the-field reflections, and I was deeply impressed, and thank you very much for that. So the thing is, up to now, and I'm gonna give the word to you for questions, but up to now what we heard is, we heard from Mehmet Bey the democratization of energy management. And the through digital applications, and we also heard that through you how this it's not only democratization of the management, but it's also the manufacturing. Energy generation is also being democratized all around Turkey by doubling its capacity. Then with Hakan Bey we heard the importance of collaboration, and that collaboration, if the note that I took is that you extended with governments, with industrialists, particularly for the farmers, and how the farmers can be competitive while turning to green. And from Barbara, I heard the empowerment of people through this transition, particularly, and the support of EBRD there. And I'm not going to ask you financing conditions for Turkey. And any questions, any inspirations from your side?
Tanay Sıtkı Uyar, İstanbul Beykent Üniversitesi. Türk değil mi herkes? Türkçe konuşuyor. Türkçe mi konuşuyor? Okay. Okay. So everybody, we know that for the cities we need digitalization and decentralization, decarbonization, electrification. Okay, and it's very important the engagement of the stakeholders in this process. So it looks as if it requires a macro scale cooperation and modeling activity to be able to handle this. We need to include the industry people for CBM, etc. So without looking the overall picture and bringing the stakeholders together to interact, to produce something together, which they will be proud of the result. So I'm just missing that in my mind. What do you think? Schneider and agricultural fertilizers, very important is. So, I mean, how are we going to handle this? Everybody is just digging some part, finance is giving the finance, but we need to reach the result later.
Thank you. I think you have pointed out one of the major challenges in a very nice way. I think this is what makes it so complex, because we can achieve this only by coming together, and we're going to do this all together. There are many stakeholders involved. It's not only technology providers, it's not only banks, it's not only governments and regulators, but it is really really coming all together and tackling it together. Because I mean, one of the major challenges, I mean, that I was trying to describe is around investment. But as a company only, I don't see any possibility how to drive this investment when I'm measured by fiscal years in terms of success. So I think even the paradigm of how to manage company or how to value companies may change. I mean, today we are valued on basically revenues and margins by fiscal years. And with that mindset, I'm not sure if we can drive this forward. But again, it's just an example, and I think it is really about coming together. And I think here policymakers play a crucial role. I mean, we see some early adopters. Just an example, we see some early adopters in some heavy industries going for hydrogen even and clean energy. And you said it perfectly right. Today, green is expensive. So how to manage this? And when we ask the customer, okay, I mean, why are you shifting to hydrogen if you much more expensive? What we see is either regulations, and I think here we need to come together.
Maybe Hakan Bey.
Actually, I'm not that pessimistic about the question, but I would rather divide my answer into two. One is whether we know what to do. Do we know what we need to do? We have the underlying Paris agreements. We have the sector-based targets, whether it's 43%, 55%. Each and every industry knows what does the industry needs to do, and each and every firm knows what the firm needs to do. The problem is, how are we going to finance it? It's a bit of a very big question that we probably won't be able to answer here under this forum, but for the developed countries, it's more of a easier and straightforward, but coming from the very basic principle that we are living under one earth, one atmosphere, there is also the other part, the developing countries, where their efforts needs to be financed, and this is a bit of a bigger problem, I believe. Hopefully, there will be nice news after the end of this forum about how the developing countries are going to finance their efforts.
Barbara, the ball is approaching your area.
Well, clearly, multilateral development banks have a huge role to play here. And as you say, the discussions are ongoing in order to strengthen our ability as individual MDBs, but also jointly to see how we can make the system more effective and how we can leverage the finance that we have and also mobilize more finance from the private sector through the finance that we provide. So we are actors in this context, but I also have to say we're not the only actors in this context. Clearly the ecosystem overall is much bigger, but we will certainly try and play our role even more so than we already do. Maybe quickly, as EBRD, we already invest 50% of our investments in green technologies, in green finance directly, and that's a commitment that we will maintain. And also all of our investments are Paris aligned. So, and that goes for our own operations, our headquarters, the cars that we drive, but all the finance that we provide as well. So we try and play our role, but it's a more concerted effort, of course.
Thank you very much. Well, we Turks are very well known about our punctuality. And that's 11:30 now. We come to the end of the meeting. And thank you very much to all of you. Thank you.